one and only Louie Lista.
Yeah!
There's probably more seating upstairs, by the way. You want to get comfortable? Gotta find somewhere here.
In 1965 and 1966, the most important record album I acquired was The Best of Muddy Waters on the Chess label. My experiments with learning to play harmonica had not yet reached the milestone of becoming a student of the fine mouth harp exponent Taj Mahal. That would not begin until 1967. So, that anthology of Muddy, real name McKinley Morganfield, blues hits was a vital part of my beginning education in blues harmonica playing. Having classic examples on it of Little Walter Jacobs accompanying Muddy in song after song. The album had an unforgettable cover photo as well. Morganfield in a sweat-glistening close-up profile posed against stark black. Toward the end of 1966, I saw that profile in person for the very first time, and the die was really cast for me. My young showbiz career at that point consisted mostly of taking the bus from sweet home city of Santa Monica to Hollywood, not nearly as unpleasant or time-consuming of an effort back then as now. The destination this fateful night was the Troubadour on Santa Monica Boulevard, where half a decade later I myself would be working behind the scenes to support my own creative endeavors. And that night, a performance of, direct from the south side of Chicago, the Muddy Waters Blues Band. Getting off the bus, dressed in corduroys and beetle boots, although sporting only moderately long hair at that point, I saw but few other Muddy fans waiting outside. A long-haired white employee, in fact, was moaning, "Not even Muddy Waters has drawn people in this place. This place must be going down for the count." For the record, the place still operates 25 years later. Indeed, the so-called folk music and blues renaissance that would make Muddy known to more audiences, particularly white audiences, than ever before, was just then beginning. When the band took the stage, I saw that it was still, at least appearance-wise, a direct transplant from a middle-class black Chicago cocktail lounge. Jimi Hendrix would soon be adding his scarlet and bright green touches to the scene, but not yet, although some of the white long hairs with money already provided a bit of harlequin color here and there in the audience at this midway point. But the actual musicians still dressed somber, cool, dark-hued suit and tie style, seeming a bit puzzled as to why all these West Coast boys didn't get a haircut or something. Muddy himself didn't seem to dominate all that much at first. I had yet to learn that the Chicago blues live show formula always opened with a non-vocal instrumental number, and Muddy rarely even came on stage until 3 or 4 songs into the set. But inexperienced as I was, I already felt the voodoo ripening in the smoky nightclub air. I studied with novice interest this large, calm, working-class-looking black gentleman who looked and moved like an old-style ladies' man. and had a truly endearing way of looking down and raising his eyebrows, looking just a little worried, as if the stinging, magical-sounding slide guitar notes that his own hands were playing were a bit alarming in their intensity even to him. Understated as everything was, this guitar work was, nonetheless, pure sex, as my soon afterwards met musical partner, singer-pianist David Crittenden would so accurately pin it. Also instrumentally leading much of the time was the introductory night's player of my chosen instrument, not little Walter of the recordings I had studied so far, but the younger harmonica blower, James Cotton. Cotton was the character, the joker, and the ham of the band, but what he played was no joke. I was enthralled by his every note and every move. In between solos, he kept puffing furiously on burning cigarettes kept at the ready in a nearby ashtray while combing his hair with equal zest in front of a mirror somehow attached to the side of the piano. I didn't yet understand how the microphone and amplifier Cotton played through could make his harmonica sound like a foghorn and a saxophone at the same time, a spine-tingling sound effect that I would spend much of the next 2 decades pursuing myself. But I was convinced that I recognized the source of his extreme wind power, as well as the cigarette puffing and the shenanigans with the comb in the mirror, for I myself had already, to increase my own beginner's lung power, begun the dangerous experimenting in amphetamine with its edge smoothed out by alcohol, a dabbling in the forbidden that would evolve for me into a quicksand grip addiction within the next few years. And then came Muddy's singing. Everything that had entranced me on record lived and breathed in front of me for the first time. That 1 in a million voice, a waterfall from high to low notes, as Crittenden would later describe it. Effortless and natural beyond compare, yet with the soaring delivery of an opera star. Hear my phone keep ringing, sound like a long distance call. When I picked up my receiver, the party said another mule kicking in your stall. And as a spoken aside to the audience, I'm gonna kill the mule. And on into another slide guitar extravaganza. Then the stage lights turned blue in the darkness, and I heard what had been a favorite on the record, featuring only guitar, harmonica, and upright bass, now come to life with the lush, full, eerie sound of the complete electric blues band, whose mysteries this night had initiated me into for good. I'm going down Louisiana, baby, behind the sun.
That's right.
Cause you know I just found out my troubles just begun. For young and inspired me, however, as well as the art, the juice and narcotics also awaited, and my troubles, in their own way, had just begun. 5 years later, things were getting spread thin. I had seen Muddy a few more times since that first night at the Troubadour. The tickets had steadily gotten more expensive, the lines to go in longer, and the audience members more intoxicated, myself particularly. The electric rock and roll world had made Muddy's Blues more of a widespread success than ever before. But as I saw him take the stage of the Ash Grove in July of 1971, the strain of having his music withstand mass marketing was showing. Some of it he seemed to find amusing. But the slogan crudely painted in on the face of his harmonica player's amplifier, "Blues Power," was not the only vulgarization that Muddy was seeing around him. As much as he had come up in an environment of barroom brawls, there was genuine alarm as well as anger in Muddy's voice when his white harmonica player stomped off the stage into the audience, headed with violent intent toward another better-known white harp player who was calling sabotage against the first player from when he had sat in earlier in the show. But it was fans who kept the two from killing each other, for all Muddy had to say was, "No, no," and began the opening of Hoochie Coochie Man, the only time I ever heard him perform it with no harp player. The show, indeed, must and had to go on. The final performance of Muddy's that I witnessed was at the posh, glittery Roxy Theater on the Sunset Strip. Yet another 5 years later. It was still like opera, although Muddy moved much more slowly than he'd used to, and played and sang seated in a chair most of the show. By now, I had my own band, and we were the groundling spectators, in the terms of Shakespeare's time, booing the barging in of star Greg Allman and a new band of his, who Muddy actually permitted to sit in on his stage for a trio of songs, ousting Muddy's own band for the nonce. We felt that a sneaky young mule was definitely kicking in Muddy's stall. But Muddy, now the droopingly tired master matador, good-naturedly and mockingly tolerated the intrusion. I could swear, referring at one point to Allman as Johnny Winter. It was a long, awkward way from the stage lights turning blue on James Cotton's cigarette smoke as the supernatural tones of "Going Down to Louisiana, Baby Behind the Sun" came to life before me for the very first time over 10 years earlier. And now in 1991, I read an LA Times writer gush praise for "The Simpsons Sing the Blues," an album featuring star players including B.B. King. And I read Pat Benatar say of her, quote, "New Directions" album, which features blues by Albert King and Wynonie Harris and others, "I'm light years away from the person I was when I started out." Actually, I don't want to be prejudiced against Pat. There is little benefit to the blues in taking a purist position, I've found over the years. Nonetheless, I hear a controversial record label president for life, who shall be unnamed, intone the term "career extensions." Probably the most fitting overall comment was made by Muddy Waters himself in one verse of "Young Fashioned Ways," recorded shortly before he passed on. "The young horse runs fast, but the old horse knows what's going on. Yeah. Oh, the young horse runs so fast, but the old horse knows what's going on. Yeah. That's why the young horse won't win the race. Honey, 'cause that old horse just lasts so long. Thank you. Yeah! Next we have the one, the only, Linda Albertano.
Let's take a 10-minute break.